My name is Joelle Piercy. I'm the Director of Outreach and Community Engagement at Safe Sound Somerset. Safe Sound Somerset is a survivor-centered, trauma-informed organization that provides free services for survivors of domestic and sexual violence. I'm here today to talk about domestic violence and how it impacts individuals and families in our community, as well as some resources that are available. One of the first things to know about domestic violence is that it is unfortunately common, but it is not normal. To give you an idea of just how common it is, 1 in 3 women, almost 1 in 3 men, and 1 in 2 non-binary and transgender individuals will experience domestic violence by a partner. This includes physical, sexual violence, and stalking by an intimate partner or an ex-partner. Domestic violence is serious, and it relates to a lot of different issues that we care about. It is connected with higher rates of depression, anxiety, suicide, higher rates of PTSD, substance abuse, and future abusive relationships, both as the harm doer and the target of abuse. It impacts people much younger than you would think. Women between the ages of 16 and 24 are 3 times more likely to experience domestic violence than they are at any other age. So it's important to begin talking about healthy relationships and warning signs of abuse, even with teenagers and younger students. It also impacts children. A very low estimate is that 1 in 15 children a year will witness domestic violence, with 90% of them witnessing physical violence directly. The number is actually believed to be even a little bit higher than that. We are in the middle of a domestic violence crisis. Since the pandemic, we are seeing an increase in the need of services as well as the severity of cases of people coming to us with increased need and increased safety concerns. So it is so important that this is a community issue and that we're addressing it together. By recognizing the warning signs, you can help save a life. Before we start talking about what the violence looks like, it's helpful to start from a place of what a healthy relationship looks like. A lot of violence definitions center around power and control, but they don't usually define power and control. And power and control can happen in a continuum. So what I like to do is I like to start in the positive. And this is based on conversations with thousands of people from all over the county. So I want to ask first, think about what does it mean for you to have power and control over your own life? Right? We ask this question of thousands of people and frequently get one of the first responses is choices, being able to make my own decisions, do whatever I want. A lot of people talk about setting their own goals and being able to define what's important to them, being able to define the values that they want to base their life on, being able to make decisions, but also understand that there's consequences for those decisions, both for themselves and other people. So we boiled that down to 3 things. 3 words make it easy to remember. So we define power and control over your own life as the ability to make choices for yourself freely, without threats, fear, manipulation, guilt tripping. The ability to set boundaries or limits. These could be emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, material boundaries, but being able to decide what feels safe for you and expecting and trusting that the people around you will listen to those boundaries and honor them, as well as the ability to give or take away consent or permission, to say yes or no. This is how we help set those boundaries, right? And again, it could be physical consent, sexual, emotional, again, material consent. Yes, you can use my phone. No, I don't want to give you access to my passwords, things like that. Now, I want to ask a slightly different question. How does it feel when you're able to make your own decisions, when people are respecting your boundaries and you feel confident in those boundaries and people are listening to your yeses and nos? How do you feel? Overwhelmingly, we hear from people that makes them feel confident, happy, trusted, respected, safe. And that is one of the key words we hear from people. These 3 words, choices, boundaries, consent, contribute overwhelmingly to our feeling of safety. Physical safety, emotional safety, sexual safety, material safety. I want to flip the question a little bit. Now I want you to think about, how does it feel when you don't have that power and control? When people are pressuring, manipulating, guilting, threatening, making it hard for you to make those decisions freely. when they are ignoring your boundaries, dismissing your reality, saying that you don't have the right to feel safe, that their decisions are overriding your right to make those limits, and they're ignoring your yeses or nos. Overwhelmingly, we hear that contributes to feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, being trapped, feeling isolated, feeling unsafe, feeling angry. And absolutely, that's what we're talking about today. We are bringing domestic violence back to that positive power and control. By doing it this way, by first defining it in the positive, it makes it so much easier, first of all, for you to identify what's healthy or unhealthy for you, because each of us experiences behaviors differently. By thinking about just these 3 words, choices, boundaries, consent, you no longer have to memorize a list of red flags. It centers how you want to feel in a relationship, and it makes it feel like you don't have to meet a certain requirement level for people to take you seriously. If your choices are being impacted, if people are violating your boundaries, if they are ignoring your yeses or nos, that is what matters, and that's important. So now let's look at relationships. Healthy, safe relationships have equal power and control, where both partners have the ability to make decisions freely without threats, fear, manipulation, where they are able to set their own boundaries and limits, and they're able to say yes or no and change their minds, right? They may have different roles, and of course there's compromise, but both people should feel that their voices are respected, their needs are respected and considered, and that they are able to freely say yes or no to things in that relationship. Abusive behaviors begin to violate someone's individual power and control over their own life. And it's when someone purposefully is beginning to take away some of that power and control, when they're limiting their choices, they're ignoring their boundaries, and violating their consent. And so the formal definition that we use is domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors in any relationship that is used by one partner or ex-partner to gain or maintain power and control over another. Okay, so by first defining it in the positive, this definition now makes a little bit more sense, right? They are taking away that individual power and control. And it also explains why this is important, right? A lot of people think, well, if it's not physical violence, it's not that bad. But I always ask people, do you have to experience physical violence to feel unsafe, to feel lack of respect, to feel isolated? No, you don't. And so by first framing it in the choices, boundaries, consent, it can also help you explain why things feel wrong. Not just what behaviors are harmful, but why are they harmful? And it helps you define what you need instead in the positive, right? It gives you a very clear litmus test. I also want to stress pattern here, the word pattern. Pattern is more than once, but a pattern can be established with just 2 actions, right? And they don't even have to be the same action. There are many ways that a partner uses to maintain or manipulate control over the target of abuse. There are some common red flags. Some 7 warning signs that we give out is if your partner's insulting you, they're not considering your feelings, they're saying that you're imagining things, overreacting, you're being hysterical, being dismissive. They're acting jealousy, or they frequently use jealousy as an excuse for what they're doing to you, and they're accusing you of cheating. Your partner does not let you talk to your family or friends. They're isolating you. They are turning you against your family or friends, or they're turning your family or friends against you. Maybe they're trying to get them thinking that you're crazy so that they don't listen to you if you go get help. Your partner may limit your access to money, the car, a phone, social media. We have people that their partner keeps them away from work, that doesn't give them access to their bank accounts, that tracks their car odometer, hides the keys when they have to go to work, basically manipulating and impacting someone's inability to take care of themselves, right? And to do those parts of their life that are so important. They may stop you from going to school or finding a job or harassing someone while they're at work. Your partner may not give up control in any aspect of your life. They may control your use of contraceptives or control the decision about when to have children, how many children, how to raise the children. Your partner may hurt or threaten to hurt you, your children, pets, or themselves even. They may say, if you hurt me or if you leave me, I'll hurt myself. And again, while that's not causing physical harm against somebody, it's impacting that ability to consent in that relationship. That is no longer a consensual relationship. If you need help or would like to speak to a trained confidential advocate, there are resources available. We'll talk a little bit later, but please know that you can call or text our 24/7 helpline. We use the words domestic violence and domestic abuse interchangeably. They are the same thing, right? Domestic violence can include physical and non-physical types of abuse. That's why some people started to use the terms domestic abuse, but we don't want people to take it less seriously because someone hears the words domestic abuse instead of domestic violence. They're both the same thing. Abuse can be any combination of physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, financial abuse, stalking, spiritual abuse, targeting their religion. And also non-physical abuse is still a form of violence. Again, impacts those feelings of power and control over someone's life and those feelings of safety. An important thing to note is that abuse does tend to increase in frequency and intensity, even if there are apologies and even if there are promises to change. A lot of people call this the cycle of violence, where there's ups and downs. We actually don't use the word cycle of violence as much in our organization for a couple of reasons. First of all, even the quote-unquote good times can be used as part of the abuse. By saying, look, I did so much better, here are some gifts, it makes it easier for them to hold that over the target of abuse in the future. Well, you can't leave me, see, I'm getting better, you have to help me, right? So those good times are part of that manipulation, right? And also, again, we want to stress that even non-physical forms of violence are still abusive, right? And can still contribute to that lack of violence. So we really like to refer to kind of those ups and downs, those different dynamics, really as all part of that play of power and control and manipulation. Abuse can happen in casual or serious relationships, online or in person, even long after a relationship ends, even after the abusive partner has started seeing someone new, because it's not about attraction, it's not about love, it's not about jealousy, it is about control. A common misconception we hear is that, well, my children don't see it, or the children, they're not being abused, so it's okay. A lot of times, however, children do get caught up in the dynamics of abuse. A lot of times, the abusive partner may even use the children as a way to perpetuate the abuse. Some ways that looks like. So the partner may hurt or threaten to hurt the children, right? And use that to control, the non-offending caregiver's actions. They may call child services or threaten to take the children away. We have had clients whose partners called ICE on them, or threatened to report them to immigration, have had false reports made to them by their partners. So then their partner can say, you can't leave me because I'll get the kids. You've got this report on you. They may encourage the children to engage in abusive behavior as well, calling the other person names, right? Turning them against the non-offending caregiver, right? Bringing them into the abuse. They may withhold access to children, isolating the whole family. I've worked with several families where the abusive partner forced them to homeschool the kids, like literally isolating the kids from the family, from the community, from the other non-offending parent. They may gaslight the entire family, convince them that what they're seeing isn't real, right? Trying to convince them of strange things. Multiple families I've worked with, they've convinced the children they have a disease that they don't have, and then they use that to control their diet, their intake, their social life, right? They may violate custody agreements or frequently use the courts to keep controlling the situation even after the relationship ends. We sometimes call that paper abuse, constantly suing, constantly bringing to court. And they also may make children feel like they have to protect the caregiver. Unfortunately, if there's physical violence, what you'll see, and you'll also see as the children get older, is that they'll feel a desire to protect their parents. And so they'll jump in physical fights and get in danger themselves. Unfortunately, there's also a big overlap between domestic violence and child abuse as well. The numbers are hard to pin down. It is believed to be on the higher end of the statistic, but between 30 to 60% of children in households with DV will experience abuse or neglect themselves. And that's exactly what I was kind of talking about, of how they get caught up in that cycle. Even though, quote unquote, it's about the parents or about the partners, the whole family and the whole household gets caught up in it. Domestic violence is a leading cause of homelessness for families with children. It impacts even in utero. Pregnancy is considered a risk factor for domestic violence, with the physical violence increasing or sometimes starting when someone is pregnant. This can contribute actually to brain changes to the baby in the utero. It can lower someone's access to prenatal care, which can contribute to poorer health outcomes for both the birthing parent and the child. Witnessing domestic violence is considered an adverse childhood experience, which may contribute to poorer health outcomes later on in life. Children who witness domestic violence are more likely to experience teen dating violence and domestic violence in their own relationships, both as the victim and the perpetrator. And unfortunately, it's also very dangerous. Between the years of 2018 and 2022, 866 children were domestic violence shooting victims. And of those children, 621 of them were killed. So that's why I love this positive quote: felt safety happens when adults arrange the environment and adjust their behavior so children can feel in a profound and basic way that they are truly safe in their home and with us. It relies so much on what we do to create a safe environment for them. If we don't, as adults, feel safe, the children in our homes aren't going to feel safe, right? They pick up on that. This is also one of the best things you can do for children who have been impacted by domestic violence. And now that we've started at the beginning of defining safety in a different way, of that power and control, one way to begin to create safety is building in choice as much as you can, even for children. Ask for consent. Ask them permission before you give them a hug. And if they say no, listen and don't try to push it, right? Say, okay, cool, high five instead, right? Respect those boundaries. And that's one of the best things that you can do for children who have been impacted by domestic violence. There are some common misconceptions about domestic violence that I'd like to go over right now that may provide some additional information and background and may help give you some background knowledge for you to make additional decisions for your life. A lot of times we'll hear from people, well, they lost in court, so it must not have happened. Every single day we see survivors who don't have proof of their violence. If someone spends all of their energy being abusive, they can get very good at being abusive and doing it in a way that hides it. Right? We see people who lose their court cases, who choose not to go to court. Court may not be the best option for them, and that's okay. They may file for a temporary restraining order and then dismiss the filing for any reason. That doesn't mean that the abuse is any less real or any less harmful. We always say that a survivor is making the choices that they need. They know their lives the best, and they are making the decisions that they need to keep themselves and their families safe. We sometimes also hear that if someone doesn't act like a victim, they must be making it up. Domestic violence is trauma. It is traumatic. Our bodies often respond to trauma triggers in ways that are unexpected and different from other people's reactions. Survivors may laugh at something that's terrifying. They may forget details, or they may hyper-focus on seemingly small or unimportant details. They may get angry. They may fight back. They may run away, shut down, or they may say yes for survival. We call that sometimes people-pleasing or fawning. A lot of times that is a trauma response, a survival response, saying yes to survive. We also note that if you're saying yes to survive, that is not a true, free yes consent. And so yes for survival is not true consent. We also hear a lot, especially for survivors who are parents, the people around them may say things like, oh, they must not care about their kids enough if they keep going back. There are so many reasons that a survivor may return to a relationship or may not end a relationship. They're scared. There's been threats that they've heard that other people don't know about. Lack of resources. Remember, part of the abuse is to try to keep them there, to keep them isolated so they don't have the resources. Housing's expensive. It's hard to afford an apartment even without 2 salaries. Or they're unaware of what resources are available. There could be cultural, religious, family, or community pressure that discourages people from leaving a relationship or calling for help. Love. They love the person. They care about them. A lot of times abusive relationships have great starts. Oh, gifts, flowers, I loved you. It was so good, so fast, right away. They love the person. They don't want the relationship to end. They just want the abuse to end. It's very hard to get to that understanding of you deserve safety now. You don't deserve safety once you help them get better. You deserve safety now. And unfortunately, it is very hard for someone to stop using violence until they really get to the root cause of why they're using violence in the first place. Like I said, there could be threats, learned helplessness or hopelessness. This idea of maybe I do deserve this, I don't deserve better, which is not true. Violence is normalized or expected part of someone's life, culture, experiences. They're trying to protect their children or pets. A lot of people won't leave their house because they would have to leave their kids behind. They would have to leave their pets behind, and they're worried about what might happen to them. Instead of asking, why do people go back? Why aren't they leaving? Instead, ask somebody, what are their safety goals? What are your safety goals for you and your children, and how can I help you feel safe? We also hear a lot that abuse is an anger management or substance abuse a problem. While domestic violence does intersect in a lot of different ways with substance abuse and anger issues, domestic violence is a domestic violence problem. Interestingly enough, a lot of times someone receiving anger management treatment will actually make them a better abuser, right? Because anger management is a lot of times about losing control. You lose control. A lot of people around you are impacted. But domestic violence is about control, right? So if someone's learning how to control themselves, it actually makes them easier to manipulate other people. And also similar things with substance abuse. Both of these issues may be a contributing or risk factor to violence, but they are different issues with different root causes and different interventions. By dismissing domestic violence as an individual anger or substance abuse problem, it makes it harder to connect the family with resources, and it makes it more difficult for all of us as a community to address domestic risk factors at the family, community, and social or policy levels. The most important thing that you need to know is that there is resources available. We have in our county a domestic violence and sexual violence organization, Safe and Sound Somerset, but every single county in New Jersey has these services. I've listed a few here for Hunterdon and Warren counties for Casa Shaw, right? And so the message I want to leave is that, first of all, if someone discloses abuse to you, the best thing you can do is believe them. All of those misconceptions that we just went over, that survivor has heard them too. They've said it to themselves. They've heard society say it. What they need is someone to say, I hear you, I believe you, and there's resources available. A lot of times you don't need to be a fact finder. Someone may need to be a fact finder. The police, the courts, they may need to be a fact finder, but a lot of times you do not need to be a fact finder right away. Give them the helpline number, say that you're there, and ask them what they need to feel safe. And finally, if you're listening to this and you're not sure, know that you deserve safety. You have the right to say no in your relationships. There are free services for survivors available in every single county. Please reach out. You can call or text our 24/7 helpline, 866-685-1122. You can also visit our website for tons of resources, information, as well as our Ask Ava podcast, where we answer real questions from real teens about relationships, dating violence, and sexual violence. Thank you so much.